Hi, everyone. This is Heather Hodges. I'm an organizational psychologist. Welcome to my show. This is the place where we say I'm in to creativity, bold thinking, transformational growth, and meaningful conversations. Today's guest is a wildly creative leader. Dr. Craig Detweiler is a scholar, storyteller, author, screenwriter, professor, and champion of meaningful creativity. He is the president and CEO of Wedgwood Circle, which helps fund creative projects that inspire and make a meaningful impact through the arts. And over the years, he has taught and mentored thousands of students, including me, at Pepperdine, Biola, Fuller, and he now serves as the Dean of the College of Arts and Media at Grand Canyon University. His cultural insights have been featured in the New York Times, CNN, Fox News, NPR, and now the I'm In podcast. His award-winning films include Remand, narrated by Angela Bassett, and these films explore powerful stories of justice and humanity. And Variety named him Mentor of the Year for his influence in the creative industry. Dr. Detweiler earned an MFA, an MDiv, and a PhD in theology, and he is passionate about the intersection of faith, media, and culture. And he is the author of, is it 6 or 7 books now, Craig?
I don't know. It's making me feel tired just thinking about it.
You've written prolific, my friend. And his latest book is Honest Creativity, the Foundation of Boundless Good and Inspired Innovation. And I have been looking forward to this conversation for months. Craig, welcome to the I'm In podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather, so much. Thrilled to be here. Glad to talk.
Well, I love your energy. I love your work. I have been watching you and learning from you for years. In fact, I think Matrix, I think that was Matrix your first book? The Matrix of Meaning in the early aughts, maybe 2002, 2003. And so I have been enjoying your work for a very long time. But I'm curious. So you have birthed into the world honest creativity. Tell us more about this. What was there a specific moment or an insight that sparked the idea? Why honest creativity and why now?
It really was sparked by my students at Grand Canyon University, who I started freaking out over AI. You know, they're learning how to be illustrators, graphic designers, filmmakers, musicians, and suddenly it seems like the machines can do it better, faster, and cheaper. And so it was suddenly like, why bother? Why try? Why rehearse? Why practice? Why develop a craft? And as I thought about those whys, I came back to these foundations of, you know, what is it that makes us human? What is it that sparks that creativity in us, whatever the job we may be in, whatever the roles that we're playing. And I thought about that sense of honesty, because I think the students didn't necessarily want to cheat. They didn't want to just maybe do easier, quicker papers to satisfy a grade. They wanted to actually really dig deeper into their own soul. And so that's where the title of Honest Creativity came from, is trying to, I'm not saying AI is dishonest creativity, right? It can be an honest enhancement, but it can also be a shortcut that shortchanges us in that creative process of how we unlock something new, something fresh, something innovative in our organizations and in our own storytelling.
So it was sparked out of a freak out moment. With
Exactly.
Great. Just looking at, you wrote this book, you must have started it in 2022 or 2023 because you published it in 24. So cutting edge with the rise of AI, but honest creativity. It sounds like honest creativity is getting back to the human creativity, and it's a slow creativity.
I think that's right. It's understanding that you don't necessarily want to go faster, right? That you might want to actually go deeper. Now, the insights could come in a flash, but they often come when we're away from those challenges that are in front of us. They're, oftentimes if it's like somebody says, be creative, we just freak out and we're like, I don't know, I don't have any ideas. So it's more like when we're, on a bike ride, when we're in the shower, it's when we're not thinking about being creative that we often have these moments of insight. And so it's building enough time and space in your life, creating slow food, right? Those ideas might come when we're chopping vegetables, when we're outside, just like painting, the wall of our house, that's when I find suddenly it's like, oh, I see now what I need to do or how to solve that problem, how to fix the organization, make some adjustments. All of that usually arises when I'm not looking for it. And so how do we activate that subconscious and give ourselves enough room for those moments of blinding insight to emerge?
Yeah, and the neuroscience of that, when we are slowing down, when we're using our right temporal lobe, when we're on a walk, when we're in the shower, that twilight space between being asleep and awake, that's when we have those moments of insight and creativity can just flourish. And I love that. One of the things that you do in this book is at the end of each chapter, you give an honest challenge. And that reminding me of one of the challenges you gave in the book is work in a different medium, try something different, try to create something in a medium that you're not familiar with. So if you are a writer, go paint, or if you're a painter, go sculpt, do something different to just spark that creativity and use something different. Why do you suggest that?
I think because one of the enemies of creativity is perfectionism. And if we're already working in a medium that we feel like we've mastered or that we're good at, then we want to be great at it. And then when we get to this pressure to be great, you cross over quickly into perfect. And so then you start to self-sabotage and self-critique in a way that cuts short what might happen more naturally when we're not obsessed with every minute detail and getting it just right. And so when you're in a medium that's unfamiliar, working with materials or in arenas that are outside your expertise, you're kind of like, well, I'm no good at this. And therefore, I'm just going to play around and have fun with it because I can't possibly be perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that actually you're going to be much closer to getting, something honest, something raw, something real, and something maybe genuinely insightful that you discovered as well through that process.
You bring up so many points there, Craig, and thinking about the emotion of creativity. I mean, I started writing down just some of the emotion words that are in the book. I mean, fear, perfectionism, shame, courage, envy, anger, longing, drive. And these are, you even use these as subheadings and subsections for the book. So what role does emotion play in honest human creativity?
Well, I don't know that we're ever going to eliminate fear, anxiety, the thought of rejection. Whenever we're putting ourselves out there in a leadership role, in an artistic role, when we're bearing a little bit of our soul or putting forth our idea, that risk of rejection is never going to go away. But I tried to flip it and say that anxiety, that fear is a great starting point because everybody feels it. And so to acknowledge that and to lean into that and say, well, what's going on in me that's got me so stirred up, that's got me so afraid and twisted and I'm in knots and I feel like I'm going to throw up. It's like, well, let's go with that. Let's go with that. And once you tap into those very universal feelings, you might become a better communicator. You might become a better leader because you're now connecting across that chasm. And really, I think most creativity, most communication is a way of saying, I'm feeling this. Are you feeling this? I'm experiencing this. Have you ever had this kind of, emotion or, insight? So almost all these acts are to make us feel a little less alone. And so to start with those feelings that make us feel alone, that make us feel isolated, then I think maybe results in better communication through that, I would say, very human acknowledgement of weakness rather than strength. You think of
Wow.
the vulnerability of, I don't know, somebody like Billie Eilish, whose songs were, they're like recorded in her bedroom in a bare whisper, as if she's almost in a dialogue with herself. But she's inviting all of those listeners into this very intimate, vulnerable space as well. You're in her own vulnerabilities, her own anxieties and fears, and then the audience goes, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
there's a
me too.
recognition. There's like a knowing. Yeah,
Yes.
it's like, yeah, I'm not alone with that. Oh my gosh, there was a part even just in the introduction where I wanted to throw the book across the room because I was like, okay, Craig, I'm done. Like, how I need to chew on this for a decade before I can turn the page. Let me see if I can find the part that was just really resonating with me. It was here. It says, I'm in the introduction. It's just right above the joy and pain section, where, just that duality of it. You write, try as we might to hide our cringe. Our creativity will eventually reveal our secrets. We are fragile freaks, broken vessels, daily disappointments that are capable of soaring sonatas, stirring sonnets, and scathing satire. What the world needs now is love and laughter and light, which the Spirit planted within you, longing to be fruitful and multiply. And I thought, wait, what?
That's a lot. That's a
Like,
lot.
let me read that 20 times and see
That's a
if at
lot.
any moment that will sink in. That's so rich.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
And
lot of
that's,
words. I mean, a lot
and
of very vivid words. Yeah.
yeah, and we're like 4 pages in. And I'm like, okay, where are we going from here? And then you unpack that over the course of an entire book. So, and of course, the book is a dance and it's a dialogue and it's a just a song list, if you will, of human creativity, AI. What is this dialogue in this dance of how do we bring our humanness to our creativity, and how does that intersect with this new world that we're in of AI? And I'm gonna hush and let you respond to that.
Well, I think because AI is about doing things faster and more efficiently, it will be a constant temptation. It's sort of like, oh, if I can just go from A to B and get there quicker, most of us will take that choice. But a lifetime of those choices, and you're suddenly like, okay, I got here faster. I'm not sure what for. I remember, there's this move for these driverless cars, right? So, Google has, Waymo, and there's all these different efforts. And I'm like, so I'm in a driverless car. I don't need to drive anymore. And I've seen pictures where they say, and look, you'll now have more time. And they show the person in like the back seat on their laptop. And I'm like, so you're going to make my life easier to take these things away so I can just spend more time online? Like, that's not the goal. That's not the victory.
Right.
I don't want to be more online. I'd like to be less online. So it's like the robots, are the ones now that seem to be the ones doing, the poetry and the painting. And then we're supposed to have more time to be on social media and responding to email. And I'm like, that's backwards. You're making me more like a machine. And the machines are the ones who are going to end up doing the fun stuff, right? Hello, time out, stop, pause. Let's not go down that road, or at least let's think before we dive in and say, oh, look, it's cheaper, faster, and convenient. I was like, well, art is usually difficult, painful, and takes decades. So let's start on that path now.
So AI it can get us there quickly, but does it get us there authentically?
And it's interesting. I think authenticity will be the test in the new era. For leaders, it's like AI it'll write us a speech. But if that speech isn't actually lived by us, if it doesn't mean anything to us, it's just words. It won't land with any authority. So you're still going to have to do the slower work of saying, like, okay, what did I feel like when I was that age? How did I get motivated? Why do I get up in the morning and come to work and try to do my best? A computer can give you some trends. It can give you some leadership principles, but it hasn't lived it. Only you've lived it. And so it's leaning into your authentic voice as a leader, as a creator, as a communicator. There's really no other way to distinguish yourself because everybody's going to have the same set of cribbed notes. Right? Because AI is going to work from the same data sets. It'll be a little bit like, Meta Facebook's data, versus like Claude's data versus Chat GPT's data. But it's still all of these bounded pre-existing sets that it's being drawn upon. And I'd like to do more than just come up with better like search words and search terms. Like that's not creativity. Creativity is, I've had my heart broken in this way. Yeah. How about you? And I've patched it together, through prayer, time, grief, etc. in this way. How about you?
Yeah.
And that's a human to human connection.
Yeah. AI can't experience that. And that one of the prompts you write in the book is, ask ChatGPT, what does it feel like to feel this emotion?
It can read a lot of books. Say here's a lot of books, but those books are all written by humans who are mining their soul,
right,
and bearing their aches and pains.
Yeah, and you and I both being creatives, like for me, that can only come through creativity. That can only come through art. Whatever medium you work in, then you take a lifetime to express that emotion that, of course, AI just simply can't do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also about what endures, right? What will connect with people on a kind of a subterranean and soulful level. Do you want just a surface quick answer? Do you want a convenient answer for heartbreak? It's like, yes, there are 3-minute answers in a song, but the reason why you pull over on the side of the road and stop the car and have to call your mom or something, that's different.
No,
That's
exactly.
because it's landing at a soulful level.
Yeah. So deep. One of the conversations you and I had briefly before we hit record, which we probably should have been recording, but we'll record it now, is just this difference in generations and the expediency versus the slow creativity, and how our generation, we were not, we're digital nomads. And now we did help our parents program the VCR when we were growing up. So we were that first generation, but I'm raising Gen Z, and they grew up in this digital world, and they want to go back to slow creativity. They want to go back to touching and manipulating things. And I didn't understand it when they started going to the record store and choosing vinyls. I'm like, wait, we've progressed so far past that, and they reverted right back. What do you think about all that? Why is that happening in these generations?
Well, I deeply appreciate what I would call their leadership in taking a different path. I don't find, I find the next generation maybe using AI to fulfill a dumb assignment, to answer a silly question that doesn't require much of them, right? So as an educator, I'm trying to come up with real assignments that ask them to go truly deep and come up with something original. And I think that's where this hunger for, physical painting, something that somebody's actually made that's a one of a kind, or an LP that I can hold in my hands and I feel the cracks and the pops on it, feels more real than the kind of the digital airbrushed auto-tuned version that didn't didn't really have musicians playing live in a studio, you know. They don't want a synthesized version of life. They want something that has some grit, that has some edge, that has some imperfection. And thankfully, that's what humans do best is grit and imperfection. That is who we are. And so, this, I don't know, kinfolk movement, this craft beer movement, everything that's based on like small batch rather than large batch. It's like everybody wants to know that things have been curated and cared for in a very thoughtful and human way.
So much there. They don't want a synthesized version of life. They want the grit and the imperfection. My painting studio is down the hall from my son, and I heard him playing a record, and I heard it popping and cracking, and I thought, well, don't you want, why would you listen to that? Don't you want the digital version where you don't have the cracks and the pops and the scratches? He's like, no, Mom, that's real. That's the good stuff. I'm like, got it. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's transition just a little bit. So, Craig, you are the epitome of a creative leader. You create out of your own soul, your own joy, your own pain and brokenness, but you also lead to unleash creativity into others. And you've mentored thousands and thousands of creatives and students and people through the years. And my research, and I am just fascinated by this intersection of how do we do that? Like, how do we create the environment or the culture, or what leadership behaviors will nurture creativity in others? What have you found? What's the answer?
I would say the first thing is offering permission, like actually saying, no, I trust you. I think you do probably have good ideas. I want to hear your good ideas. I want you to bring them to me. And when you do, you're likely to get a yes and get permission to pursue that, rather than a no. It's hard for people to summon the courage to say, how about this? What about that? And if they feel like 90% of the time the answer is always no, then at some point they're like, I'm not going to give you my best ideas. I'm not gonna bring you anything. And so the organization starts to bog down because all of the giftings in the people are being suppressed. So you've got to release that. You've got to give them agency. You've got to give them the ability to make their own decisions and to be the adults that you've hired them to be. And so when you deputize them and say, yeah, no, this is you. That's your corner. No, that's your responsibility. No, you tell me what you think is best. I can offer advice, but I shouldn't get in their weeds, right? Those are their weeds. They know how to weed out the garden and find the good stuff. So I'll show up, I'll look, observe, maybe comment, but I'm not there to micromanage. I'm not there to lord my power over them. I'm there to give them the seeds, the water, and the sunshine that they need to prosper, flourish, and grow.
What do you think is the flip side of that, Craig? Why do some leaders not give that kind of permission?
Well, control, there's a weird relationship between control and power, isn't there? I think some people think leadership and power means controlling both the people and the results. And I'm not against quality control, right? But what you want to do is give folks the ability and the power to make those decisions for themselves and to own the quality for themselves. So you might be, you're going to communicate a standard and you're going to model a standard, but it doesn't mean you need to micromanage a standard. And I think that's where things start to break down, where people would say on behalf of the organization, I'm being hard on you because, the organization expects this. Well, I think people have enough inner drive towards excellence, that they're not, maybe it's the difference between like racehorses, Mustangs and donkeys or something. I think some leaders think that they've got a bunch of donkeys that they need to like whip into shape. And it's like, I think most people really are wild Mustangs that need enough free range to run a little bit wild. It doesn't mean you can't rein them in or say, this is where the bounds of there's a fence out there. It's not all, boundless, but there should be more room to roam and to find green grass and to find, ponds and et cetera, than to just say, no, stay in your lane, stay in your pen, stay in these confines. It's also it's like, that's how you grow a leader too. They don't know how fast they can go. They don't know how far they can go until you've given them a chance to get a little bit out of the bounds, get beyond the pen and see like, oh, I can do this. I can go to that far mountain and make my way back. I'm not going to get lost. If I do, I'll still be there to say, hey, remember over here, this was the mission. This is the goal. So I'm not going to let them get too far afield, but I want them to explore and discover how much more they might be able to do than they've even imagined.
Was there a person in your life that did that for you, a teacher, mentor, parent, grandparent, who gave you that freedom to run?
I think there have been several. It's a combination of bad examples and good examples, right? So I've been under, I'm thinking about like maybe like my first grade teacher versus my third grade teacher, like first grade was like, hey, you want to try this? You want to do this? Check this out. If you run out of that, there's more over here. And whereas third grade was like, sit down, self-control, stop moving around, stop squirming, stop talking. She was just like, no, 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 all the time.
Yeah.
And so I had my choice. It was like, do I want to be more Miss McCormick or Mrs. Birkland, And I don't think at the time that I was thinking, what kind of leader or teacher do I want to be? But I know what worked with me and what didn't, Whereas with one, I constantly bristled every time it was like, sit down. It was just like, like you didn't even ask me what I was doing over there. We were working on something or we were creating something. Whereas Miss McCormick had a certain kind of gentleness and a certain openness that was like, I kind of trust what you guys are doing over there. Like, yeah, there's laughter, but maybe that's not bad. Maybe that laughter is good. That's creative laughter. That's discovery laughter. That's not distracting laughter. And so it's kind of the same thing in organizations, right? It's like, well, there's people in the corner laughing and conspiring against you because of your bad leadership that maybe makes you paranoid. And then there's other people who are laughing with you saying, I saw this and I thought about this and what about this? And let's celebrate this victory together. And if you can create that kind of atmosphere of affirmation and experimentation, the multiplying factor, right, of setting people loose to lead and to flow in their giftedness, I mean, it becomes a powerful like pipe of abundance, of overflow is really what results.
Oh my gosh. My Miss McCormick was Mr. Kingsley. So eighth grade, I had the blessing of an international childhood, and we lived in Paris, France, when I was in eighth grade. And Mr. Kingsley at the American School of Paris, he was an art teacher. And I think he was actually my last art teacher. And I haven't had an art lesson since then. I've just, copied the great masters and figured it out on my own. But he would say, any way you want, any way you want, any way you want. That's how you do it. And we like, okay, freedom. Like there's the pasture there, but there's the boundaries and go. And you're so right. When we have leaders in organizations who offer boundaries and limitations, but the creativity within those boundaries, that's when the magic happens.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's when we get extraordinary results. And a lot of people that listen to this podcast are in healthcare, and they are anywhere from, clinicians to middle managers, all the way up to executives and senior leaders. And I'm curious, how would you answer the question, why do we need creativity in healthcare in the United States?
Mm. Well, healthcare is sort of rooted in scientific creativity, is it not? It's rooted in experimentation. It's rooted in somebody going, here's a problem. I need a solution. What are the possibilities? What's been done and proven successful? And what are we still, throwing up our hands and saying, I'm not sure. I don't know what to do here. So science, yes, it's rigorous testing, but it's testing theories. It's testing possibilities. It's rooted in creativity. I would say every organization, will either kind of thrive and expand or contract based on the leadership model at the top. So there's either room for people to bring new ideas and better methods, and maybe more excellent practices into the organization, or the organization will start to turn in on itself, where it's like, oh, they actually don't want my ideas. They don't want innovation, and they don't want to grow. They say they do. But when I bring them an idea that'll make them better and make me better or make my team better, it's shut down before it even starts. So once you start shutting down innovation, you start shutting down your organization. And now you're kind of managing downward. Because you're creating kind of smaller and smaller boxes. And we've been in those organizations. And what happens to those organizations? Talent gets driven away.
Yeah.
Best people leave.
That's exactly where my mind went. Like, I'm not going to stay in that kind of environment. And the best of the best wouldn't either.
Best leave. And so you get a brain drain, and it's hard to recover from those kind of spirals, or to re-enchant an organization, to reopen, the possibilities in people's minds if they've been shut down for too long.
Can you think
and
of
managed downward? Yeah.
So I'm curious, Craig, can you think of a time or a story when a team came together and was led well, and because of the leadership, they were able to achieve an extraordinary result?
I think that's really the story in many cases of what often creates a classic film. And one of my all-time favorite films is Casablanca. Well, Casablanca was kind of a bare sketch of an idea. It was based on some pre-existing material that wasn't very elevated. Nobody thought they were making a classic film, and they weren't quite even sure what the ending would be. And so you have, a goal of excellence, or maybe not even excellence, like passableness in mind, but the actors, right, who in a sense you would call like your employees or your star performers on your team, right? So you've got Bogart, you've got, Ingrid Bergman. You've got this great situation of like, how do you navigate the Nazis and codes of honor and all of this? And the writers weren't sure whether he's going to get the girl or not. They weren't sure who does she choose to go with. And I think the uncertainty around that was actually helpful, because you had to, day by day on set, pay attention to what's actually transpiring. What is the chemistry of the players on screen? How are they performing together? Sitting in the audience's place or the client's perspective, what is it that they would want to see? and then even making hard choices, right? So the easy version would have been like, Bogart and Bergman, off into the sunset, everybody's happy. And instead they were like, that feels too easy. That feels light. And this is a heavy situation. We're talking about Nazis and life choices here. You can't make a nice, tidy, happy ending when it comes to this. And so they did something much more complex and said, what about codes of honor and sacrifice and giving up some of ourselves for something better and the greater good? And so they took something that was supposed to be a disposable thing and turned it into something that lives on by making harder choices, by making tougher choices, by respecting the audience, respecting the client, paying attention to what's happening in front of them, thinking about the wider cultural uh, context, and then doing it together, right? A director, a writer, a actor, all collaborating on the finished product, and not saying like, well, the script says this, and we've got to go by the script. It's like, now let's be open to where the truth and the best result may reside, and that's how you make a masterpiece. You know.
Wow. No, but
Casablanca.
yeah, there it is. And it would have been predictable and easy to ride off into the sunset, but they chose the harder path, the more true, authentic, good, beautiful, true art. And the story is just raw.
Yeah.
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 Well,
And I guess I just want to say then for leaders too, it's like we often know what the easy choice is. We know maybe where the quick profits are. We know what the efficient choice is. But is that the best choice? Is that what will really help the organization grow long term? Is that what will really enable people to thrive? Or will it just maybe help that next quarter's profits look like a temporary bump? And it's like, do you want the temporary bump? Yeah. Do you want a temporary bump? Is that the goal? Just like, just met the profits for this quarter, lost, one third of my team. It's like, I don't think that's the goal. Um, so maybe being willing to have a little more long-term vision and make some harder choices that would get you to a more beautiful, sublime, and satisfying conclusion.
and I'm in the creativity literature right now, and of course, everything that you're saying is backed up by the literature and by the research, and we know that, when employees are allowed to be creative at work, they're more engaged, they're more satisfied, they're more wholehearted in what they bring to the organization. But the question, I'm curious, like how would you answer this when you hear somebody say, "Oh, I'm not creative"? What's your response?
uh, if you're a human being, then you are made in the image of God, and God's first most defining characteristic is creativity, creator, originator. Um, Ruach is a Hebrew word for the spirit of God that is in us, right? It's breath, right? So even as we're breathing, right? We're breathing in not just air, but we're also breathing in ideas and creativity, and then we're sending those forth. And so that spirit that's in us is, I would say, it is easy to beat it down. It is easy to discourage. And we've had teachers and people, parents, unfortunately, sometimes maybe, but people in our life who've said, no, stop, you're dumb. This is stupid. Don't try that. We've had experiences that have also said, like, you'll embarrass yourself, you'll feel bad, you'll look silly. So all those things can conspire against us to say, I'm not creative. But that breath, that originating, inspiration, literally inspiritation, right, within us keeps fighting to come out. And it doesn't even matter, if we're flipping burgers, we've been taught to do it this way. And then we're like, what if you add a little of this spice? Or what if I, cross hatch it this way? Or what if I, add this ingredient? It's like every time we're trying, we're like, oh, could it be a little better? Could it be a little different? I've seen that. I've heard that. How do I flip it? Right? Literally, like flip the burger. How do I flip it into a new way that makes it slightly better? And it's in those situations, it's like somebody sees that and it's like, maybe you're not just burger flipping material, maybe you're management material. And then once you get into that manager level, you're like, well, if I could do that for this store, maybe I can do it for 3 stores. Maybe maybe I should be owner, maybe I can take what I've learned here and go create my own thing over here with a little bit of capital and investment and sell the story of who I am based on how far I've come in my own journey. So yeah, I'm not creative is not an acceptable answer.
It's not an acceptable answer. I could not agree more. Like, of course you're creative. Well, first of all, you're alive, you're human, you're breathing. You are creative because you are created in the image of God, who's the original creator. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, Craig, what excites you most about the future of creativity, especially in this world where, this increasing driven, we have AI, we have blockchain technology. What excites you right now?
Well, I feel like I feel like there's going to be a creative acceleration and renaissance for a couple different reasons. AI will make certain things affordable to people who may have been shut out, like their vision didn't match their pocketbook. And so as a filmmaker, or maybe someone who's like, I don't have the money to go to school to get a master's in animation, well, AI would allow you to create an animated film, perhaps, based on characters that you have in your head, but you don't quite have the ability to pull off. So it will accelerate the possibilities for many people if it remains affordable and accessible. That's a big if. But I think the second part, if you're I'm going to say a physical artist, if you are a dancer, if you are a stage performer, if you are someone who's creating sculpture, painting, tangible items, it's going to get rarer and rarer. Your stock is actually going to go up when people realize, wait, that's actually you singing? You did that? And so even live performing, it'll be like, did you just dance in front of me? You made that move? I watched that leap. I watched that pirouette. Um, it will become a rarer thing. It'll almost be like an asterisk, like actual live performance, genuinely like hand painted. All of that will just be like, oh, that's interesting.
That's more precious.
Oh, that's different.
Well,
Wow.
I'm excited for you to say that. as an artist, I don't know if you know this. As a keynote speaker, I speed paint on stage. I have a studio where I slow paint, but then I speed paint, and I can create a painting in about 5 minutes. And there's my son, producer Caleb. He creates a video for me to paint to, and then I just sling paint and we pull something together. And at a recent keynote, I had somebody come up to me afterwards and say, okay, how did you do that? Was it your glasses? Do you have AI in your glasses? I'm like, no, I just practiced.
Wow. Right.
No, that's just human creativity.
Yep.
And a lot of practice in the studio.
That's investment, right? That's an investment of time and energy. Yeah. Yeah. No, and it'll I'm telling you, I think the stock of physical artists will rise in the same way that physical media has come back, because people will be like, oh, this is real. I can touch it. I can see the brush stroke. I saw the sweat on your brow, the actual sweat, on that performer, or that. And look at sports. I think that's one reason why sports remains so popular, because people are like, they actually did that. That dunk happened. And of course, they know there's thousands of hours of practice behind it, but it's seeing a human rise to a certain level of excellence that people are like, please,
Yeah,
bravo.
more. Yeah,
You do
humans
that
are
again.
amazing.
Could you do that again?
I had never made that connection with the sports. That's fascinating. But yeah,
Mhm.
that I think that's one of the draws is like that's what a person can do. Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh, Craig, this has been such a fun conversation. Before I let you go, my research assistant, Percy, the I'm in penguin, he has a question for you. Percy.
Percy.
Percy, do you have that question? Where's Percy? Okay, Craig, here is Percy's question for you. So, Percy's first question is from a previous guest. And the question is, how have you handled feedback that was going to be difficult to deliver, but you knew it would be helpful for the person to receive?
I generally try to find the teachable moment. So I I feel like people can only hear things when they're in a position to receive it. And so I understand there might be times where it's like it's in the heat of the moment and something needs to be communicated right now. But by and large, if it's an actual like, you want people to take it in, you have to create a situation or at least aspire to create space for it to be received. And I think that also means time to unpack it, right? And also maybe not make it a singular event. So it's hear this now. Are we clear? Do you understand it? Right? Let them see if they kind of get the basics of what you're actually saying. Then let them go away. Let them process it, live with it, sit with it, and bring it back. Bring back the question. So it's in a sense, an open-ended critique. It's not a closed book critique. It's the start of a conversation that you hope will result in some editing, some tweaks, some adjustments that they will also be satisfied with once they've had time to internalize it and put it into practice.
And you are particularly good at that because I've been on the receiving end of your feedback, and that's exactly how you handle it. You
Mm,
know, it's as a use it as a teaching moment, and then time and space to reflect and absorb, and then it's an ongoing dialogue. It's not a one and done.
that's it. That's it. And then the next time around, they're even more receptive because they've said, well, this has worked before. Hey, please hurry up and critique my stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think?
What else you got for
And then
me?
it's like, yeah, yeah. But that's a completely different relationship now. You know, now you've really got something that's mutual and can really go somewhere. Yeah.
Well, Percy also wants to know, what is one question you would like to ask a future guest?
Probably something like basic, super basic and fundamental, like what inspires you to wake up in the morning? Why on any given day do you go, okay, I'm going to try this again?
Beautiful.
What is that? What is
I,
that?
that is so great. Well, Craig, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your creative insights with us. Your passion is so inspiring. So, how can our listeners find you, and where can they get their copy of Honest Creativity?
Honest creativity, absolutely. Hey, if you got local bookstores, if they don't have it, ask them to order it. Support local bookstores, indie bookstores. We know all the convenient places. It's available at all the convenient places as well. Not a problem if that's your preference, but I'm an indie bookstore fan. So I'd love that. And if you want to do a group, I've talked to groups. So if you have like a group of 6 or 8 folks who want to go through it together or whatever, I'll be happy to zoom in and talk to you. Like week 1 or week 4 or whatever it may be.
Excellent. Thank you for that. You're so generous with your time. That's one of the things that I just love about you too. So thank you.
It's because the book. A book is a conversation starter. So I'd love to talk to people about it, just like this. Your questions have been great. It's been super fun.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Craig. And thank you to our listeners for joining us in this conversation. And so if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a dose of inspiration and creativity. So until next time, keep saying, I'm in to creativity, bold thinking, transformational growth, and meaningful conversations. May you be wildly creative in your life and leadership. I'll see you soon.